Hi, Alicia.
Hey, Hector, how are you?
Very good. I'm excited about the QuickBooks Online Masterclass for Reports course that we're putting together for November of 2021 and beyond. How about yourself?
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've had a reports course in my library already, but there's been so many new developments and so many new releases, and I've discovered so many new ways of using the reports that I'm completely excited for our masterclass.
Absolutely. Me too. And we'll discuss more about that because this video is made for the purpose of promoting that masterclass. And we're waiting for November of 2021 because it's right after the big QuickBooks conference where they release a lot of new features for QuickBooks Online. And we're hoping that if any new features, at least the biggest ones, get added for reports in early November, that we are going to be able to showcase all those things in that masterclass coming up. So, Alicia, we wanted to do this promo video. I think the idea we were having is we're going to sort of pick each other's brains on how to build custom reports in QuickBooks Online. I'll ask you about a report. You ask me about a report. And then if we have time, we'll do a third bonus report. How about that?
That sounds great.
Yeah. You want to start?
Sure. So one of the questions that I get from my customers a lot is, how do I do reports on commissions? Because there's no obvious fields for commissions in QuickBooks. So how can you use QuickBooks Online to track what you owe people who are referring to you?
Okay. So prior to jumping in and doing the report, let's define what kind of data we're trying to extract from our sales in order to get a commission report. So I think there's going to be essentially two types of commission reports. There's going to be commissions on gross sales, and there's going to be commissions on gross income, which would include some sort of profit component or gross profit component, which will include the cost. Now that gets a little bit tricky with including costs, because if you are selling inventory parts, it gets a little bit easier because the cost of the product is sort of built in the invoice. But if the costs are happening by an external factor, you're paying a shipping company, or you're paying some storage fees, or you're paying someone to maintain or upgrade or improve that piece of inventory, then you're going to have to keep track of those costs and essentially show a profitability report for that salesperson or that sales rep in order to then know what the profit is and then pay the commission. Now, exactly. I promise you.
Yeah, there's so many indirect costs involved that it's really helpful to see the whole big picture.
Right. And I promise you that QuickBooks will not automate this where you press a button and it'll automatically tell you how much to pay every employee and put it in their paychecks. However, what we want is to get the report that shows the sales, the cost, if that's the event, if we're going to do a profit report, grouped by that particular employee or salesperson. So then we can know what that number is. And then maybe we take that into Excel and multiply it times their commission rate. It gets a little bit more hairy when we talk about tiered commission, where they get a percentage for the first X amount of dollars. And then afterwards, all that stuff you're probably going to have to end up doing in Excel. But what we want that core number to come out of our accounting, which has been verified against banks and reconciled. And we want to have a good starting point. And most importantly, we want to close those books after we pay those commissions to avoid that happening. The other wrench or curveball that commission reports can bring to you, in my experience, is differentiating between paying commissions based on sales made, whether the customer paid you or not, and paying commissions based on paid sales. And there's also an issue with the timing of the paid sales where, maybe I'm going to pay you all your sales for last month that have been paid up to date, or I'm going to pay you all the sales that have been paid the last month, regardless of when you made the sale. Has to do with the timing of the payment. So then it gets tricky into a cash basis report and a accrual basis report. That's the type of stuff that we'll cover in a deep reports class. But we're going to do a simple sales commission report based on gross sales. What do you think?
I think that sounds great. I mean, all the things that you're talking about can be really overwhelming to a business owner. And so anything that we can do to demystify it and show you kind of like the simplest way to get the most effective data is going to be really helpful.
Absolutely right. So let's jump right into the sales commission reports. The first thing you need to do is you need to track the salesperson. You need to track the person in charge, your employee, whoever is the the person or the entity that we're going to assign those sales to,
so
that we can have.
So it could be employees, it could be employees, it could be sales reps, it could be contractors.
Right. You just whatever that entity is. It could be another business that you're paying a referral fee for sending you clients. Okay, whatever it is. So we want sales by entity. That's really what we want.
Okay.
So what the tip I'm going to show you is with tags. And the reason why we're going to use tags is because tags is available in all versions of QuickBooks Online, from Simple Start all the way to Advanced, right? So this is going to fit every business size. Now, when it comes to measuring profitability and inventory and stuff like that, you're probably going to be more in the plus and the advanced side. And then those are going to give you more options like classes, locations, and custom fields, which we're not going to cover in this promo video, but we will cover in the masterclass just because there's a lot more nuance to that. So let's do tags because everybody can do tags.
Right.
So
Yeah. I really like the tags feature. It came out just, a little over a year ago, and it really made the ability to slice and dice your numbers on multi-dimensions available to everybody without having to rely on classes. And in some ways it's more flexible because with classes, you're limited to just, one dimension. With tags, you can go anywhere you want.
Correct. And so I agree 1,000,000%, but and there's a bit more nuance. And again, this type of stuff that we cover in a deeper class. Tags has limited reporting capabilities at the moment. Maybe somebody's watching this video and 5 years from now, and Tags is the most amazing reporting platform. But right now, Tags is going to be a little bit limited. You'll see when we show the tax reports, you'll see they work great, but you don't have as much flexibility as classes, locations, or custom fields would give you. So we clicked on the gear menu. That was step one. Then under list, we're going to go down to tags. As I mentioned earlier, everybody should have access to tags. In the tag screen, you're going to be able to create tag groups and then the tags themselves. Think of the tag group as the category. So sales rep is sort of the category. So we're going to scroll down here and we're going to see right now in this particular QuickBooks file, we have country as a tag group. I created that for a different example that I did. And then we have source. Now I'm going to open up country to show you. And I created tags, one for Canada, one for Mexico, one for other, and one for USA. So if I wanted to track sales by country of destination or country of origin, whatever your logic is there, you'll be able to run that. Maybe not commission reports, or maybe there are commission reports. Maybe there's a country manager, a regional manager, or something like that that gets a bonus or a commission based on that. So you don't necessarily have to put the person's name. You could also put the region or what we call the entity, the identifying dimension. Dimension is probably the better technical term. And then we have source. So another example of how you can use tags is, I want to measure where my business is coming from. Is it coming from my Google ads? Is it coming from a customer referral, word of mouth, magazine ad from my website? So you can do that. So just sort of two ideas on how you can use tags. So you can think of them beyond this sales commission example, but we're going to sort of lean into the sales rep on that. So I'm going to click on the new button on the top right, and I'm going to have two options, tag group and tag. I got to start with the tag group first. This is my tag category. I'm going to click on tag group and I'm going to call it salesperson. Just very simple salesperson. What's really cool about tags, sort of, it's very unique thing is the color coding.
I love the color coding.
I agree with you. Color coding is amazing. So I'm going to make this pink, and the whole category is pink. And that just makes it easier for the people to identify.
You get a really good visual cue when you're looking at your information.
Correct. I mean, it's just like you're going to have a transaction with a bunch of tags. The colors at least let you know where your eyes should be pointing to. So that's my general category. It's called salesperson. So let's say we have Hector as one of our salesperson, and then we have Alicia. Okay. So we got two salespeople. We're competing for number one spot so we can get the biggest bonus or whatever. So there's going to be a two salesperson. All sales are going to be either assigned to Hector or to Alicia. I'm going to click done, and that is created. You're going to notice that my salesperson tag group is set up there. There's a 2 there letting you know that there are 2 active tags. You can create multiple tags here, and you can disable them or delete them once you don't need them anymore. And once you do that, they get removed from the transaction. Yeah, I know that's freaking out. But you can create as many tags as you want to. The total is going to be 9. 300. We have 9 right now. 300 is your total. So once you get into that limit, if you're not using those tags anymore, you can start deleting them. You would see here says transactions. It will tell you how many transactions are currently assigned to those tags. There's none to salesperson because we just created that. So let's do a couple of transactions. I'm going to go to new invoice and I'll create an invoice. I'll pick a customer here at random. I'm going to pick a product here at random. And we're going to make this, let's say, $10,000. And you're going to notice up here where it says tags, you can click on it. You get a drop-down menu. And with the color coding, helps your eyes figure out what you're going to be looking at. And I'm going to select Alicia. So Alicia made her first sale of the month. What's cool about tags, and again, not having to do with commissions, but you can also add tags from the other tag groups, from the other colors. Let's call it that. And that could allow you to do some really powerful cross-reporting and cross-referencing.
Exactly. You can only have one selection from each group. That's something important to remember.
Yeah, that one's important too. So the only one that we really focus here is Alicia, the salesperson. So I'm going to click on save, and we're going to throw a couple of wrenches here. On this particular invoice, I'm going to receive a partial payment to just kind of show you some of the little nuances that we can get when it comes to commission. So we're going to do a partial payment for $5,000. I'm going to assign it to our latest invoice here. Since I'm doing a partial payment, there going to be some finagling with applying those payments to the right invoice. So I'm doing a partial payment. She sold 10,000, but we only got paid 5,000. So that's going to add some flavor into this example.
Okay.
So let's do another invoice here. I'm going to do another invoice for Alicia as well. Let's do a different customer. And then Alicia would be the salesperson. I'm going to skip the other tags as wouldn't be relevant for this example. I'll pick whatever item here random, and we're going to make this $9,000. And then I'm going to hit save and close. So we got both of our sales for Alicia in the books. Let's go ahead and do a new invoice, and we're going to do a different customer here. We'll pick any customer at random. I'm going to pick any item that's in here. And let's say this is going to be $19,000. And I'm going to give this to Hector. And then this invoice is also unpaid. We literally only had one paid invoice. I'm going to do save and new one more time. And I'm going to do maybe like a smaller invoice that's going to be fully paid. That way we have all the options here. We have all the different situations. We can have a partial payment, non-payment. I'm going to do $100 here. So partial payment, non-payment, and a full payment. So this is going to be for Hector. I'm going to click on save, and then I'm going to click on receive payment and bring that payment in fully. One little note to bring in, especially within the realm and concepts of full payments, sales receipts can also be used, and sales receipts are always fully paid by its nature. That's how sales receipts work. So that could work as well. Let's just do it that way we don't miss the opportunity to throw a sales receipt there for $50, and then we'll have that in there. And as I mentioned earlier, sales receipts come with a payment built in. There's no such thing as a partial payment or anything like that in the sales receipt world. So sales receipt exists. That means the payment exists. It's sort of a fully paid invoice. So we're done. We have a couple of transactions here. As you can tell in the tag section, there's 5 transactions in total. I can click on that button, and then it will show me all my sales that have those tags in it. Okay. Now this report, this could work. This is kind of a good starting point. I can come in here, click on tags, and only choose Alicia, and then click on apply. And then I'm able to see all my sales for Alicia. So you could start from this point, not bad. The problem with this is I cannot filter by paid invoices, unpaid invoices, and that sort of thing. That's why the tags worksheet, let's call it that, wouldn't be enough. So now we need to resort to reports to get better information. So I'm going to go in the reports menu on the left-hand side. I'm going to click on reports, and then we're going to search here for tag. And that's probably the fastest way to get to it. Just search for tag in the search box, and it will give you all the reports that you can run by tag. By the time we're recording this, there's only 2. And that's what I mentioned earlier. Tags are not the most powerful way of doing it. And just to kind of just show you why, if I do class, which would be the competition of tags in this case, you have 4 options. And don't let that fool you. That's 4 pre-built reports. You can add class filtering and class grouping in probably close to 100 reports. So that's really, and that's more of a know-how of using QuickBooks. Same thing with locations. You get 4 default reports plus availability of locations in multiple filters and groupings, which you don't get with tag. So anyway, so we go back into tag, and then we're going to just simplify and do transaction list by tag group. That's probably the easiest one to start with. And here where it says group by, it's the default is ungroup tags. One kind of semi-interesting thing about tags is that you can have tags that don't belong to a group. They just sort of free tags in there. They're all color-coded gray. Fun fact. And that could work. I'm not a big fan of it. I know I have a lot of clients with sort of scattered brain syndrome where they think just throwing tags at stuff will be useful to them at some point. But I think the tag grouping just provides so much better dimensions of information.
Right.
So
and you can have an unlimited amount of ungrouped tags, but then you lose the comparative ability. It's just all it is just one label.
Right. The comparative, the grouping, the opportunities, for Alicia and Hector to compete to see who's the best salesperson, and have it all in one report.
Yeah, but you're in charge of the mouse.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, just to make this report a little bit easier to read, I'm going to click on the gear menu, and I'm going to click down here in the bottom where it says reorder fields. Give me 1 second while I scroll up. Reorder columns, actually. And I'm going to bring amount sort of to the top, just sort of front and center there, just so it's the first thing that we're looking at here. So sort of the first number that we're seeing here is amount. So we see Alicia had $19,000 worth of sales, and Hector had $19,150 worth of sales. Sorry, Alicia, I guess I am the better salesperson. Now, one of the
in charge of the mouse.
Right. One of the interesting things about this is then bringing in the component of what if is paid sales versus just sales that are booked in there. That's where we turn on our filters. So we're going to click on customize on the top right, and then we're going to go down to filter, and we're going to see all these different options that we have for filter. There's one filter here called AR paid. That means, is the invoice paid or not? So I'm going to check AR paid. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to have 3 options. I'm going to have paid, unpaid, and all. So if I click on paid and click on run report, the only thing I'm going to see here is a paid invoice. Okay, that's all I'm going to see, a paid invoice. If I click on the customize button and I click on unpaid, then I'm going to see all my unpaid invoices. So that's a really interesting one to know. So I'm going to click on customize. I'm going to select all of them.
Interestingly, the partially paid still counted as unpaid.
Right. The partially paid, because this is fully paid or fully unpaid. This is where we have to activate other areas of QuickBooks to really understand where we are there. So I'm gonna go into rows and columns, and I'm gonna make sure that AR paid it's showing as a field. So it's not just a filter. So we're gonna unfilter, but we're gonna show it as a field. And I'm also gonna bring this to the top here, so we're kind of seeing it right next to the amount. Okay. Then I'm gonna scroll down and see my other fields here, just so we can see all the different options that I have. If you go to open balance, that's going to give you the amount of the invoice that has yet to be paid. So if I click on open balance and I bring that over, I'm also going to sort of put that here in the top again, so we can just kind of focus on those numbers. I'm going to bring the customer first, just because it drives me sort of nuts not to have the customer first. This is
that's kind of where we're all focused.
Yeah, that's my OCD flaring up. So I'm going to uncheck all the other fields. Maybe I'm not so interested in all the other fields here, and I'm just going to leave name, amount, AR paid, open balance, date, and transaction type. So then I'm going to click on run report, and then we get to see all the transactions. Now, the open balance will let me know if there is an invoice that has not yet been paid, or the portion that has not yet been paid. So for example, we have the invoice for $100 that's paid. Open balance will be 0. That's normal. We have the sales receipt for $50. It doesn't even have a paid and unpaid tag because there's no context of paid and unpaid. Also no open balance. Sales receipts are always containing payments.
Right.
And then we have Alicia's invoice here for $10,000 with an open balance of 5,000. So if I wanted to pay based on the amount of the invoice that has been paid, I would have to then do the opposite of open balance, right? Take my amount minus open balance and get that difference. So you could take this report, export it to Excel, and do that calculation. Probably not the best approach. Best approach is to look at the same information in a profit and loss format, and then we can play with accrual and cash basis to then play with the whole concept of paid and invoices that have not been,
Right.
but potentially having invoices that are not paid in the sales. So again, we get this report gives me total sales. If I wanted to calculate how much is it based on the portion that has been paid, I gotta export this to Excel, add a column, and get the difference between amount and open balance to be able to get that. There's a caveat to that. And again, this is why Alicia and I love each other, even though we're competitors in the training space, is because we are thorough and we like to kind of just say, hey, this issue could happen to you. These open balance is called a running open balance. That means if the invoice was dated, let's say 3 months ago, and there's payments happening, partial payments happening through a couple of months, every time you run a report against the open balance, you're technically possibly reporting that sale again in your commission reports. This is why if you're going to be paying based on paid invoices, you should do it based on in cash basis, which means that if the invoice is partially paid, then you partially pay that commission. It's the best way to just keep sanity over, especially if you're dealing with customers that pay in chunks. You agree, Alicia?
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back into reports, and then we're going to search for tag one more time, and we'll do profit and loss by tag. We'll click on profit and loss by tag, and then we're going to click on display columns by, and then we're going to bring the salesperson tag. And then essentially I'm going to have 2 columns in my profit and loss. I'm going to have my sales for Alicia, my sales for Hector. Now this report is in accrual basis, which means all sales, paid or unpaid, will show up in there. As you remember earlier, these are all based on invoices that we created, not necessarily based on payments. If I wanted this to be based on payments, then I'm going to click on cash, then click on run report. And then this is now going to give me based on the actual money that the company has received. So if you are, my pro tip, if you are going to pay commissions based on paid invoices, don't do it based on when the invoice gets fully paid, because partial payments they're a pain to keep track of, especially if it goes across multiple months. Do it based on the partial payment and pay the commission, the percentage, whatever happens to be on that partial payment. Now, I have some clients that pay commissions based on units. They pay commissions based on sales, not based on a percentage. Like, you're going to get $50 per sale or whatever. And I'm only going to give you the $50 when the invoice is fully paid. That really does complicate things. And I got to tell you, that only really works easily if you are going to force your clients to either pay fully or not pay at all, because then you're going to crisscross all these numbers and they'll be very hard to keep track of. So that's my commission spiel. Alicia. Your turn, right?
That was very thorough. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, very thorough. Some people say very thorough as a compliment, and some say that was kind of boring and wordy, but that's okay. So I'm going to click on stop share. So I'm going to give the floor to Alicia. Okay. And Alicia, here's my question to you.
Yeah.
For many accountants and power users, they can look at a profit and loss report. They understand what they're looking at, and they feel pretty confident that the stuff that's in there, it's accurate. And I think you believe this as well, is the reports are they're going to be the livelihood of the small business owner. They're going to help you understand what's happening in your business. Mm-hmm. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If the reports are wrong, then they're going to be making wrong decisions. So you've been working with tons of small business owners forever. Mm-hmm. What tips do you give them to give them more confidence that when they're looking at the reports, that the information is accurate? I guess, how do you analyze reports and try to figure out if they're accurate?
Yeah, especially right at tax time. A a lot of my clients are DIY business owners where I train them to how to do all the routine transactions. And then I kind of check in with them monthly or quarterly to do their bookkeeping. And then at year end, I go through their books with a fine tooth comb, in pretty much every January. And we make sure that all the transactions are in the right buckets. But even after I've done my work, like, using the reclassify tool, doing the reconciliations, all of that, I've found that there's still times when, like, maybe the business owner shifted their perspective and how they were tracking things over the years. And so I found a couple reports that I really like that allow me to do two things. One is to double check and make sure that we're being consistent with how we're entering the data, so that if we compare the numbers in 2021, we're doing it the same way as what we did in 2018. And then the other is an opportunity for the business owner to actually take a look at how they're doing and get a realistic look at, are they trending up? Are they trending down? Are they spending more money? Are they saving more money? How have their sales been? And which categories of sales have been more specific? Because every business owner went into business because there's something that they loved to do and that they're really good at. But sometimes the passion isn't where the money is. And so I really like helping business owners uncover, the Pareto principle, the 20-80, that 20% of your inputs brings out 80% of your outputs. Maybe this little side job thing that you did had a way better margin, then maybe you should take a look at shifting and pivoting what you're working on. So in order to do those things, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. I want to show you some of the reports that I like to run. And I'm basically going to keep it down with the essentials, that I'm going to go ahead and run a profit and loss report. And what I want to show you is that up at the top of the profit and loss report, you have a bunch of tools here. Hector also showed you on the customize button up here in the upper right-hand corner about some of the other things that you can do. But I want to start with the P&L. The thing that I want to let you know about this file that we're looking at is this is a sandbox file. It's my wild style construction where I just go in and test things out. So the numbers that you're going to see here are not real numbers. They're also not going to be completely accurate for what I want to show you, but you're going to be able to see the framework so that you can use your imagination. So running the P&L, great. We see how we did for the year. We make sure that we have made money. Oops, they lost $3,000 this year. But here's where we start having some fun with it, is I'll go up to the date range. And the first one that I do is I actually change it to all dates. And then I split the columns into display columns by instead of total. Let's go take a look at the life of the company. So I'll change that to years. And then I'm going to do it in accrual basis, but you can do it in cash base. Absolutely, in cash basis. So I'll run this report. I can see here that I have a few empty years here. That must mean there's a stray transaction in 2013 that's kind of waking up those columns. So I'm going to focus just in the last few years. So again, the context for this is after we have made sure that the books are all dialed in at tax time, then what I do is I come in here. And again, I'm looking for two things. One is anomalies and one is trends. So if I look just at construction income, usually on a file, these are going to be fairly consistent, and ideally they're going to grow a little bit every single year. And I can see here that they went from, let's say, 2017, $37,000 in construction income to $524,000, and then up to 1.3 mil. And then 2020, bam, it collapsed. So then that's where we take a look and we say, okay, what's going on in the company? Is this because you maybe you're working on a bigger long-term project and you're not going to see the revenue until 2021? Or is the money somewhere else in a different column? And was something classified differently in 2020 than it was in 2019? And so this is a great opportunity to see if something was misclassified. And then we take a look at lifetime trends, and we know that things ground to a halt in 2020. So this actually makes sense within that context as well. So I take that information and we roll down through all the numbers and all the comparisons, and we make sure that things are trending in the right direction. We find out sometimes that maybe employment taxes, payroll taxes were accidentally coded to a payroll expense for taxes instead of offsetting the liability. There's different common errors that people will make. So we kind of go through all of this. Now, once you see that there's something that you want to explore further, you can go ahead and take a look for it. So for example, let's say I'm looking at my job materials expenses. So we know that we had a lot of job materials in 2019, which makes sense because the income was so much higher. But when I look at 2020, it's not quite proportional. So then I'll go in and I'll click on that dollar amount. And now it tells me all the expenses that I had for 2020. But let's go take a look and analyze that even further. I can go ahead and group this now by month and take a look at how it broke down. And so, my job materials were, in the low 3,000s in the beginning of the year, which makes sense in Portland because it's raining. And then we had a big project at the end of the summer or in the summer. And so our job materials went up then. And then boom, 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 in November, bam, look at that number, $21,000 as opposed to, typical lower numbers. So that makes me think, okay, is the business activity what's happening seasonally? So if I'm looking at the $21,000 down in expenses and job materials here in November, then it would be nice to be able to go back to the report summary on the previous screen and double check and make sure that my income in that time frame was also comparable. And so I might drill into my construction income and do the same kind of analysis and break it up by month, and then make sure that my income is trending around the same times. Now, with construction, a lot of the time you're not going to get paid for many months afterwards, but I can see here that, okay, my income here is up in October, which is pre-buying, and $100,000 for those expenses. So at least the business owner is making sure that he's got the cash flow in order to support those higher materials expenses.
So what you're saying here is, and I know we both know it, but I want to just emphasize this, that you can't look at a report and inherently look at numbers and say, this is right or this is wrong. You're going to have to apply some of your working knowledge and understanding of the business and go back and make some memory and say, hey, was that the month that we were spending a lot of money? Was that the month that we were running like chickens with the heads cut off with all this extra work? Was that the month that we were staring at the phone and we got no phone calls? And that makes sense that we didn't have, the sales are not showing, or expenses are not showing, or more expenses are showing, or more payroll is showing, or more advertising or less advertising. You do have to apply some of the logic and experiences with your business and try to tie them with the numbers to then, again, accuracy is a relative term in accounting, but to be as accurate as possible, correct?
Correct. And it's a great opportunity for the business owner to review their year and look at how they did, because most of the time people's heads are down and they're getting it done. But being able to look at a kind of a retrospective and see, what did I do last year and what worked and what didn't work? So that, again, you want to take whatever that 20% of what worked that gave you the 80%. And if you grow that 20%, that 80% is going to get proportionally bigger. And so your business grows.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, one other thing that I wanted to introduce here is the idea of budgeting, that it's one thing to kind of fly by the seat of your pants. And, a lot of business owners will just look at the bank balance and make sure it's positive and call it good. But you want a roadmap. You want to be able to see, not only look at these expenses in the trends like I've been showing you, but then compare to your plan as well. And so when you're using QuickBooks Online Plus and Advanced, you also have a budgeting tool, which is found up under the gear and then over here in budgets. And I'm just going to throw together a quick budget just on this one job materials category. So when I'm just going to do a quick one on job materials. And if I want to, I'm going to do it for this fiscal year. One of my cool tricks that I like to do is we are going to do it monthly, and I could go in and fill in my data comparisons to last year. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want all the numbers for all of the categories. But one thing that is also really nice about budgets in QBO specifically is that you can have budgets by customer and by project and by class and by location. So it's not just one budget for the fiscal year. You can actually, for those of you who are in construction or do project related jobs, you can make a budget just for that one project. And then that will allow you to plan out how much income you're going to make in what months, when your job materials are going to hit, when your overhead expenses are going to hit, and then you can arrange the cash flow ahead of time before you even begin. So I'm going to also not subdivide this one. I'm just going to kind of roll with it from here. So I'm going to click on next. And then it opens up the budget to create the budget. Now, like I said, I'm not going to create a whole budget here, but I do want to show you one of my tricks that I like to do is I like to go in by year. And let's say I think my job materials costs, which are right down here, are going to be $20,000 for the year. So I'll put in 20,000. And then when I burst this back out to month, it actually distributes it for me. So it's a kind of a backwards engineering way. You can also, if I have other job related costs here, I can go in and say, all right, I'm going to have another $5,000 in other costs. And you can also push it forward in that direction. But I wanted to show you that you can go bi-directionally on this. Now, when I'm doing my planning and I know, for example, that my November costs are going to be much higher, I can go in and say, all right, I've got that project coming in November. I've got my high materials costs in June, planning for that other job that I'm doing. And then you can go in and arrange for all the known upcoming income and the upcoming expenses. So if I know I'm going to have $10,000 in materials in November, then let's go ahead and plan in October to go ahead and invoice for 20,000 of that money so that I have 20,000 so that I can spend 10 and not even blink and worry about it. So that's kind of the idea with planning a budget. And I'm going to go ahead and down and save that. And I did this for 2021. Should have done it for 2020, but I will wing it from here. And so now when I go to my reports, we have, just like Hector said, instead of scrolling around looking for your reports, you can just come up to this report finder. And if I type in budget, I've got a budget overview, which will show me what my budgets are, but then my budgets versus actuals. And now I can go in, whether it's monthly or whether it's annually, and I can go look for those expenses and how much I actually made. So here's my job materials. And again, there's not any real transactions in this file, but I can see here that here's what my budgeting was. And then it will compare what I actually made. And then you can see if you're over budget and under budget and plan ahead.
Create a bill for like $2,500 for May of 2021 so we can kind of see how that shows for our job materials.
All right. So what I'm doing right here is I'm going to go ahead and make that job materials.
In May.
So I'll do this I'm going to do May 15th, 2021. I'm going to make this bill for $2,500. You know what? I'm also going to put on my other line as well for project job-related costs. So let's put some of those in here as well. So let's put it in another. Classes are all part of it as well. And you can create budgets that will slice and dice against your classes. And then I will save and close. And then I'll save and close. Now I do need to make sure that once I save when I go back that my report is on accrual basis, because that and I head over to May, and now I can now see that my job materials were
25 cents
in expense than I had budgeted for. So I'm $833 over budget, 150 over budget.
Okay.
And then my job related costs, I only had 1,000. I budgeted for 5,000. So I'm actually $4,000 over budget. So I've got some room there for more expense. And so it's this kind of management analysis that, it takes more time and it takes more thought but it really helps you guide your plan so that you're not just like saying, oh, yeah, I want to go buy that thing for this job. You can actually really control your expenses and really keep tabs and be in charge of your own company, which sounds funny because like business owners, you're in charge of your company, but really being conscious about your direction that you're going. And you can get all of that through. It's also possible that I've got credits and other stuff happening in this file. Like I said, it's kind of a sample.
Takeaways here. One, let's look at the trend report. Go back into the bill again. If there's any ups or downs, unexpected increases or decreases.
That worked totally.
You're going to analyze them. Just try to make memory. This bill 10,000 with what you remember about the business to make sure that they're accurate. You're going to cut that. And then you're going to also, one of your tips is, you want to do a budget that way, 500, whatever you planned beforehand, whatever was seemingly predictable beforehand can now be applied against the reality. And sometimes being way off, under or over budget could also indicate that something might be classified incorrectly. And that's how we can try to get things to be more accurate.
Exactly. So Hector, with all the new reporting tools that have been coming out, what are some of like the most advanced reports that Qbo can do?
Okay. Yes, I will show you. So I'm going to share my screen here. And there's a tool called the Custom Report Builder, which is by far the most powerful reporting tool in probably the entire competition scheme of QuickBooks and the other apps that are out there that are in this sort of under $200 price range for small businesses. This is only available in the advanced edition of QuickBooks Online. And what you're seeing here is a transaction detail report that shows me profit by rep, class, and customer. So I'm using 3 dimensions of data. So we have 3 reps here, Mike, Lisa, and Bob. I used a custom field to display this, right? So these are custom fields. So we're rivaling tags because we're going to use fields in conjunction with classes and locations and customers. We're going to use multiple dimensions. So we're going to use custom fields instead of tags. So I have what you see here are all my sales. In this case, it's profit. I'll explain that in a minute by rep. Now I'm going to go in here into group and I'm going to show you there's a little button here that says edit group calculations where you can select any column to sum up. So when I sum up my ledger amount and I'm going to total it, and what that's going to give me is going to give me a total dollar amount all added up under that ledger amount. Ledger amount basically means debit or credit balance. And I know for accountants, this is easy, but for the non-accountants, negative amounts in a ledger, it's a credit, which means it's a sale. And a positive amount, it's a debit, which means it's an expense. So when you look at things in this sort of advanced accounting equation, a negative number doesn't mean negative, it just means credit, and that's your net profit. Now I'm going to open up Mike, and I'm going to see that under the class, we were using the class wholesale and the class retail, we know what our profit per class is. If we break it one step further, then we can know our profit per customer. So we see under Mike's retail sales, retail will be the class. For all these customers, we can see the exact profit per customer. So going back to the commission example, let's say wholesale sales pay at 10% and a retail sale pay at 20%. See, now we can now really start playing with interesting commission structures because we have the capacity to break down data in this way. So now I'm going to open up ABC customer, and you're going to see there's 2 lines on the same invoice. We see invoice number 100305. There's 2 lines. There's the sale line for 1320 and the cost line for 1200. How do I know that's a sales line, that's a cost line? Well, we can go to customize here and we can show that field. I happen to know it because I understand accounting, but you can come up here in here and look for account type right here, account type on the chart of accounts. So once we turn on account types, and we're going to bring this over here into layout, I'm going to bring it sort of in the forefront, all the way in the back here. I'm going to bring it here next to the customer's name. That way we can see that we have all the income stuff there comes in one line and COGS goes on the other line. That makes it just really simple to understand what information is being displayed here. I don't want to see profit. I only want to see gross sales. Easy. I'm going to go into filter here, and then I'm going to filter my account type to only include income and not include cost of goods sold. I had pre-built the report. That's why it was showing that. And now I'm going to see only sales. So these are my total sales for Mike's retail class sales, $7,200 at the customer level. So this stuff is really, really powerful. Here in the grouping, you can group up to 3 dimensions. On the regular reporting, you can only do 1 level grouping. So if you were not to use the advanced reporting tool here, you will use a regular reporting tool, you can group it by customers, you can group it by class, you can group it by product or whatever, or by account, but you're not going to be able to get multiple dimensions, sort of pivot table style, drill down capacity for that. So to access this report, we're going to click in the reports menu. And then we're going to go to where it says custom report builder. And we can either click on the invoice report or we can click on the expense report.
And this is in QuickBooks Online Advanced.
Advanced only, right? You need to be paying $180 a month for your QuickBooks Online, right? So if you're a small business, paying $25, $50, or $80 for the lower versions, and you're like, man, I wish that was there. Hey, you pay for better technology, right? So this is their top technology. They're going to save their best feature for their best version, right?
I mean, you're also paying for the best business analysis possible. That QuickBooks Online Advanced is an investment in your company because you can really drill into what's happening and understand it so that you can leverage that.
Exactly. So I'm going to show you how to build a report like this. We're going to go to create new report from scratch. You kind of just see where we're starting from zero. We got absolutely nothing in here. If you know Excel pivot tables, then this stuff will come in a little bit easier for you. If you've never seen an Excel pivot table, let's plug royalwise.com. She teaches pivot tables. Absolutely. It's a fundamental Excel skill that everybody should know. So I'm going to do this fiscal year. So just show all my transactions for this fiscal year. And then down here says columns. I can pick from any of the fields that are available. So I'm going to click invoice and I'm going to select invoice number. So you're going to see all my invoice numbers. Then I'm going to select, it's going to show all, and it was customer name. So I got invoice number, I got customer name. Let's bring in maybe, I think let's get the amount, just the overall invoice amount. It's going to be here somewhere. So we got just real simple information right now. We got invoice number, customer name, amount, stuff that you can build with regular reports. But now I'm going to go into filter and I'm going to go to filter invoice amount. And I'm going to do under operation and put greater than, and I only want to see sales bigger than $500. Okay. So now it just starts getting really interesting. How we can start filtering some of the data. Maybe I also want to bring in another dimension of amount. Let's do amount. And I don't want to bring sales that are any larger than, let's say, $10,000. So now I have a different filter here. So now basically I have an in-between. It's called an in-between filter. So now I'm seeing only my sales for that category. Then I can go into grouping and then I can group by customer name. So now we have just really interesting, right? Based on customer name, we got the total dollar amounts. Okay. We can go even one step further. We can go to customize and we can bring in not from the invoice entity, but for the invoice line entity, because one picks up from the header of the transaction, from the summary, and the other one picks up from the details. Let's say from the details, I'm going to bring in, let's say, the amount line. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the line item level. Since I'm going to bring an amount line, I no longer need the amount from the invoice itself, just from the line item itself. Okay. So I'm going to bring it in from the individual line items. I'm going to bring in the product as well. So let's look for the product and service. And then maybe we can pick the account line, so we know what account it's being used in that transaction. So now we're seeing my sales by customer. I can open any of these customers and we can see all of the invoices and we can see all of the products and services that have been used. In some cases, you're going to see blanks, and blanks happen whenever it is reporting from the header or the summary of the transaction. So what we can do simply is going to filter, and we can bring in a filter for, let's say, product and service, and we can say it's not empty. Right. So don't show me anything missing a product or service, only focus on product and service. Then I can go into not filter, and go into grouping, and then I can bring in a product and service line as a second dimension. So we do product and service. So now we're seeing sales by customer, and then I can open up the sales by customer, and I can see all the products I sold that customer. Even more interesting, I can flip these things. So I'm going to put product and service in the top, and then I'm going to put customer in the bottom. So now we have a different sort of dimension of data. We see our materials item being sold to all these customers and the total amount.
So this really is behaving as a pivot table.
It is a pivot table for QuickBooks Online.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. And I could talk about this forever.
And in fact, we will be.
And we will be. You think 3 hours is forever, but I guarantee you 3 hours will fly by.
Oh, yeah, so absolutely.
The few of you that made it through this entire video, and we really do appreciate, you must be a fellow nerd like us, interested in these sort of things. Alicia and I are doing a class together on it's going to go live on November 11th. We're going to present it live via a webinar platform. So if you sign up prior to November 11th, you can be in the live webinar and you can ask questions, and we're going to try to answer those questions. And many people will try to stop me and say, can you do a report that does this? Do a report that does that? And that will be kind of the point, can you make custom reports? QuickBooks Online cannot do everything that you can imagine. It cannot, but it can do a lot of it, right? So there's usually a gap between what it can do and what you can imagine. But, in business, there are some things that we're going to have to, figure out how to put together in a report. Sometimes you can do a workaround and change the way you do data entry. That's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss what kind of reports we can build. We're going to show you from the very basic reports, customizing the basic reports, to the sort of let's call it the medium level reports, which are reports that contain classes, locations, and item and account data as grouping. And then we're going to finalize with this type of reports, the custom reporting tool. And the other advanced report here where it says reports, you're going to see Performance Center, which are custom graphs. You can also build custom graphs and custom charts based on whatever dimension you want. So
I love these.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'm going to go to quick add charts. I'm going to go gross profit over time. And you're going to see, boop, immediately a graph gets built with gross profit over time. We can do revenue over time, and immediately a report is built. If I go to add new chart, I can build my own type of chart. So let's do revenue. Right. I'm going to click on continue. And then let's do this year. That's good. And then we're going to group for graphing purposes. Remember, we could group in the pivot table type reports, the custom reporting tool. That's just going to be data, like a data dump, right? It's going to be graphical. So I'm going to do it, let's say, by classes. And then all of a sudden, we get to see a report by class. Let's pick the classes that we're going to include. You can do up to 5 here, because in a graph, if you got more than 5 lines happening, it's just a war zone, right? So yeah, that's typically what you want to see. So you can kind of see what's going on with your sales. We see that our Shopify sales went up in July. You can figure out what happened. Why did that happen? And then we can see that retail was the lowest in July. And again, whatever type of analysis you're going to make, you're going to be able to get tons of really interesting information. You can also filter. So you can say, hey, only show me sales that are for a particular customer, or only show me sales that involve a particular item. And then I can just go in here and pick the items that I want to filter. So it's only going to show me the sales for that item. Again, I picked an example that might not be the best, but you can pick up to 5 here. So as you start adding more, you're going to get a lot more information, and then your reports will start becoming a lot richer, a lot more detailed. So we're also going to go pretty deep into that tool, because that tool, honestly, is just sitting there and it's very much underutilized. So how do you sign up for the course? The course is $150. It's going to be a 3-hour course. It will go live. If you attend live, you'll be able to ask some questions. If you cannot attend live on November 11th, it's going to be recorded, and you'll be able to purchase the pre-recorded course. So you go to royalwise.com, and we'll put the link in the description. That's for sure.
So when you want to sign up for Hector's class, there's a couple different ways that you can get there. If you go to royalwise.com, there's a calendar up in the corner, and then you head into November. And so you click on it, it gives you a description and you click here. The other way is if you're looking at our entire class catalog, you can get in and you see all the classes that we have coming up through the fall. We have an entire schedule. Hector's class is going to be a little bit more advanced, but if you're somebody who you're listening to this, you're like, that sounds really cool, but I'm still like, how do you make an invoice? My classes will take you all the way back to that level so that you can fill in all the information that you need. So I have a whole slew of different classes available. So when you're looking at it from here, you can see Hector's wonderful face right there. Go ahead and click on it. Some things to know is that we are giving discounts. So the course itself is $150. We have some specials so that you can get in as cost effectively as possible. So if you're watching this video in September, you can use the code Hector930, and by September 30th, you can take 20% off the price. If you're watching this video in October, you can take 10% off the price, Hector1031. And if you're watching in November, it's full price. But there's a lot that you're going to get for this amount. So like Hector mentioned, you will get recordings of all of the videos, but something else, and it's lifetime access. So you will always have access to them. But something else that we bring to the table here at RoyalWise, which is different from other webinar platforms, is that there's also a questions forum attached to the course. And so during the webinar, anybody who's attending live will be able to ask questions in that forum or through the Zoom, whichever way you like better. But when you come back after the fact and you're watching this, a year from now, 5 years from now, you can still ask questions and I'll still be able to come in and answer them for you. By joining the RoyalWise Owls, we call it the RoyalWise Owls, which stands for the On-Demand Web-Based Learning Solution. It's more than just a webinar platform. We're really an ongoing training platform. So this is really a QuickBooks Online reporting class. And I'm just delighted that Hector is coming in to work with us on this.
And I'll throw in one more thing that is going to be included. This is sort of my own personal resource. The people that take the course, one of the things, it's a little bit of a preview of it, one of the things that you want to know about QuickBooks Online reporting is that there is a database of reports. There's about 115 reports in the entire QBO built-in report ecosystem, including 2 hidden reports, one called the custom transaction report and the other one called the generic transaction list report. These reports you can only find by accident, okay?
Oh, I can't wait to see these.
in my spreadsheet, I have direct links to those reports, so you'll be able to access them.
Cool.
But knowing that there's an entire list of reports out there with hyperlinks to do that, the only logical thing that a person like me would do is to actually build a custom reports bookmark in my Google Chrome, so I can quickly access whatever report I want from Google Chrome and not have to go find the report inside QuickBooks Online Reporting. Plus, a really cool thing is there are some reports. I'll give you an example. One of the reports is an interesting one. Like this one, you see profit and loss detail. That was not available in QuickBooks Online Simple Start as a default option. But if you actually click on the link in the spreadsheet, you'll be able to get it. So there are some reports that you can access in Simple Start, which is the cheapest version of QBO, simply by knowing the link, balance sheet summary. Good example. That's not available in Simple Start.
Clever.
Yeah, so it's total life hack. And this spreadsheet, it's available now. I'm going to put the link in the description so you know how to get it. This is public info. I made this my gift to the world. Okay. But what comes with the course is actually show you how to build your own custom reporting menu that fits, your particular situation. And I'm also going to give you a download of mine. So you can just forget it. I'll just use Hector's. It's pretty awesome because it has a link to this sheet under it. And then it's got all the hidden reports, actually more hidden reports and some nuances around why they're hidden and that sort of thing. So all the reports that you can possibly access, they're going to be in here. So I'm going to give you a little tiny file that you upload into your Google Chrome, and you'll be able to do that. And I actually sell that already for $25. Believe it or not, people buy bookmark packages for $25 because it took me a while to build this. But as part of the course, it's one of the the little freebies that you get.
Thank you very much for that bonus information, that bonus material.
And beyond that, as part of the, you're welcome, as part of the same spreadsheet that's available to the public, and I'm going to go deep in the course to show you how I use this spreadsheet for reference. I built sort of the ultimate reports database, which is basically every single report in QuickBooks Online, every single field. And I tell you if that field is available in the report, if it's filterable, and if it's groupable. So whenever again, it's a master class, right? So you're going to become a master of building reports. And part of mastery is the thought process and the planning process. So you're thinking, I'm trying to build a report that contains a class filter, and it is showing the location in the fields, but I want to group it by customer, right? So you're thinking, okay, can I do all that? So then you can actually go in here, look at the report that you want to start from, and you can know, is the field available for viewing? Is it filterable? That means I can remove information or only display specific type of information based on the filter. And can I group it by a particular dimension? So
this is excellent. I mean, I love the idea of being able to save myself time, that especially, for instance, if I'm trying to run payroll reports and I'm not sure which one's exactly going to give me what I need, being able to go look at them, get the descriptions, see what fields are available, and save me from having to click around and experiment. That is a huge value.
Right. And again, some of you, I suspect that if you have watched up to this point, you're very interested in reports in general. And that's awesome. And then you'll look at this resource and you'll be able to exploit the information that's in here to your benefit. But many people just never get really deep into reports, and they look at this stuff and it looks like Greek. It's just not useful, not relevant to them. And that's fine. But I got to tell you, my promise is that if I'm going to take you through a master class in reporting, that I want to give you the confidence and the tools that when you look at this resource, which is actually not to toot my own horn, no one else builds stuff like this. This is my signature thing that I compile the knowledge of what's out there into simple to digest. Well, I guess that's subjective, but simple to digest information that will give you just quick resources to be able to solve problems. And I think building custom reports is one of the most important problems that accountants and QuickBooks Power users build for the clients. So those are the two little bonuses that we're going to discuss in detail. And with that, Alicia, thank you very much for doing this with me and for everybody else. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Well, this is Alicia, and we'll see you in class.